We are Mike and Lynn Kane, better known as Pop and Mimi, and we've been married for over 43 years. God supernaturally put our lives together. We were born again in 1980, had come out of great addiction, dysfunction, other marriages. There were things that had happened in our lives, and God just got a hold of us. And in 1980, in 1981, we were married and committed and submitted our lives not only to the Lord, but to each other.
Yes.
And began to walk out this thing. Amen. And we began to teach and preach and host small groups and do whatever our church called us to do.
I began to have dreams and visions of the East German Wall coming down. And I didn't understand. But I knew then that God was making a difference in our lives.
In 1990, our pastor had a vision that 100 missionaries from our church would go into all the world, and we stepped up, and in January of 1990, we sold everything we owned. We gave away our cats and our dogs and
Your favorite child?
Our favorite son. And he moved in with some friends of ours, and he was in Bible school at that time. And we moved overseas and began a journey for the Lord.
Yeah.
And began to travel and minister.
Well, I thought at that time that what God had called me to do, to be a missionary, and that's what I would decide to do, but it was all about me.
As Pop was traveling, I would stay back in Germany, and I was alone.
Yeah.
There was no family. There was no one there. At that time, there were no cell phones. There were no televisions. There was nothing, and I was just literally cut off. And I lived in a nation that did not want Jesus, did not want missionaries there, and did not want our presence there. And so there was great spiritual warfare. And after 5 years of being on the field, I started having some health issues. And I went back to America to check on, see what was going on.
Yeah.
Discovered that I had cancer. And I had to immediately go into surgery. Pop was still overseas at this time. I came home without him. And it was just a really dark time in my life. I began to question everything. Here we are, we had given everything that we knew of, to go and search the dream and to follow the dream of the Lord and to follow the calling of the Lord. And we were doing the best we could with what we had.
Right, correct.
And as this health issue hit me, cancer, I began to be very, very confused. And I began to really look at my marriage and say, you know what, this is not working for me anymore. Lies began to come in my mind and to attack me, that there was something better. And the enemy was right there waiting. And the enemy will put distractions. And the minute you begin to believe a lie and start focusing on a lie, he will provide evidence that lie is true. And sometimes you don't even know what's truth and what's a lie. And the enemy set me up. There were people in my life right then at that moment that said, there's something better. And I began to be distracted that the grass was greener on the other side. There was a situation, a relationship that began to try to woo me away from my husband.
I came home, and when I came home, I realized that I should be home, that I should be the covering over my wife and over my family, because she was at home again, alone again, like I had left her, just out by myself and doing what I thought was what I was supposed to do.
Yeah.
But I wasn't covering my wife.
Yeah, and it was at that time that as you came home, we began to talk about what was going on. And I literally said to you, I don't want our marriage anymore.
Right.
I can't take this. It's too painful.
Right.
I'm confused. I'm lost. And again, as we know, I was being tempted away from our marriage.
Yeah.
And I said to you, I don't love you anymore.
Yeah.
And what did you say?
I told Mimi, I said, you're saying that you don't love me anymore, but I got enough love in my heart as to love both of us.
Yes. And as he said that, I said, we will make this happen. We will work this out, no matter what it takes.
At that point, whenever we were talking to each other, and I told you that I repent now. I repent for the things that I had done, because it was all about me. It wasn't about you. And I needed to repent, and I needed to be the covering over you, is what God had put on me.
Yeah, and in that moment, it was like that thing broke off of me. And there was some weeks after that that I was
Yes.
filled with just remorse and
Yeah.
guilt of how could our marriage have gotten to this place. We're teaching marriage conferences. We've sat with more people,
Yeah.
countless marriage conferences and seminars and speaking one.
We're missionaries.
But we're missionaries. We're traveling all over the world. We're preaching and teaching the gospel of Jesus.
Yes.
But there came a point right after all of this had happened, and we began to put our marriage back together. And I was riding down the road, and I was so filled with, but if that hadn't happened, and if that hadn't happened, I'm the one that took the hit. But that was off, and that was off. And the Spirit of the Lord came up in that car with me, and the Lord said to me, I need you to take full responsibility for your actions.
Yeah.
Don't be looking because that happened, or that attacked, or why weren't they there for me, or why didn't they cover me? You repent. And I said, Lord, I repent. I began to holler in my car, Lord, I repent. It's me. Whatever was in me that was broken, you have redeemed it, and it's me. And the Spirit of God came up in that car, and that thing was broken, and it never, never, never vexed me again, or plagued me again, or came after me again, because that thing was settled.
Well, at that point, we became a team. I changed my whole perspective as far as being a responsible person over my wife. I made the decision to pray over my wife every day, every night before she went to sleep. I would lay hands on her and pray for her that she would be covered in her sleep. I started that practice almost 30 years ago. And it's not a practice, it's a heart. And I pray over me every day.
And so I think as the Lord began to minister to us both, we realized
Yeah.
some things that, number one, you had not prayed over me. And
No.
Number two, I had an expectation on you
Yeah.
that you couldn't live up under. So you just
Yeah.
didn't do any of it.
Right.
Because I always say I was trying to put a square peg in a round hole.
Yeah.
Pop's different. He's a creative. He's a musician. He's a missionary. And I wanted to put him in the three-piece suit look with the bow tie and speaking King James English. And that was not Pop. That is not Pop. He cannot be that person. He is who he is.
Yes, yeah.
And when I began to set him free, I sat at his feet and I asked him to forgive me for having an expectation on him that I wanted him to be someone that he could never be. And I said, I want you to be you. Just be you. And he began to weep. And he said, all I've ever wanted you to do was just let me be me. And I said, and all I ever wanted you to do was cover me in prayer and be there as my protector. And there was some years of bumps, but we submitted our lives.
Yeah.
And I can tell you this, that God redeemed our marriage.
Yeah.
Our marriage was a good marriage.
Yeah.
But now it's a redeemed marriage because there's no enemy.
No.
There's nothing that can separate us.
And God redeemed our marriage, and He can redeem yours.